Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now I'm sure many of you know I love my cycling, and there's a car brand that has a huge history within cycling, and that is Skoda. In particular the Tour de France. Skoda have been associated with the Tour de France and supplied all of the course cars of the Tour de France for the last 20 years. So when I recently got invited to attend the Tour de France by Skoda, I asked them for a car to drive to the airport, and they sent me the Enyaq IV vRS. Well, it'd be rude of me not to review it while I had it, right? Now, if you've not yet tuned into my Tour de France video, I'm going to put a link in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Even if you're not a cycling fan, what I experienced that day was very special, but the big thing for me, apart from the cycling, which was very cool, was just the range of Skoda vehicles supporting the Tour de France. Every official course car, all the press cars, they were all Skodas, and a combination of, we were in a Superb. There were lots of Enyaqs, full electric cars, hybrids. It was a really impressive turnout. And as I said, Skoda have been supporting the Tour de France for 20 years. But earlier this year, I was out in Czechia with Skoda, and we were looking at some of the new cars coming to market. Again, I did a film about that. I'll put a link above. But I was talking to the PR team, and I said I'd really like to get my hands on the Enyaq. And one of the reasons for that is the car that picked us up from the airport was an Enyaq IV vRS, but it was in kind of a luminous green color, an amazing spec of a car. And when this one arrived, I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, because although red is cool, I quite fancied the luminous green. Now the bike's over there for a reason. We'll do the can I get a bike in the boot test in a while, but let's just talk a little bit about the Enyaq. I've wanted to get my hands on one for a while. I hear very, very good things about them, and I'm happy to report, having driven this car for the last few days, all of the good things I've heard about them seem to be true. It's a very impressive vehicle. Let's just walk around it and chat about the styling. We'll have a look at the practicality, look at the important performance statistics, and then we'll take it for a spin up the road and I'll tell you how it drives. I think it's a really cool looking car. As I said, I wouldn't go for red myself. I'm not a massive red car fan. Even a Ferrari I wouldn't have in red. I'd go for like a blue or a black or a gunmetal grey. But it's a nice looking car. It has this crystal face. Now, unfortunately, I'm not filming this at night time, but this has a really cool party piece. It's almost like the ultimate nighttime running lights. It's a really smart front end of the car, quite an aggressive look. This is a kind of raised up coupe, lots and lots of space inside. But let's wander around the back, look at the styling, and also have a chat about practicality. Now we're around the back, you can kind of see the coupe style. And whilst I probably prefer the aesthetics of a pure saloon, what the coupe style does do is it should give more headroom for the rear seat passenger and also a little bit more boot space. While we're talking about boot space, there's a lot of it, basically. So even with the seats up, you've got a good sized boot. But what I want to do is to see if I can get my bike in the boot without taking the wheels off. Now, Skoda do a whole range of accessories. You could put a tow bar on one of these, so you could have your rear mounted cycle carrier. You could put a roof rack and have your bikes on the roof. But what about getting it inside the car? Now, what I am going to need to do in order to do that is ditch this. But I'll replace this with my bike. Because if I've got a Skoda and this film's all about cycling, then I need to get my bike in the boot. Now, to drop the seats, super easy. I've got two little levers here that drop either side. Huge amount of space, and with a bit of luck, even without taking the wheels off, we should. No problem. Absolutely no worries at all. Can the boot close? Yep. So it's got plenty of storage at the back. The question is, how much front storage has it got? Has it got a frunk or a fruit? Sadly, no. Under here, all you're going to find is a whole bunch of stuff, battery management systems, your washer bottle top up, that kind of thing. So sadly, it doesn't have any front storage. The powertrain in the car, so first up, battery size is a 77 kilowatt hour battery. Motor wise, that goes through a single gear all-wheel drive system. The motor has 299 PS, 460 Newton meters of torque. Now it is limited to a top speed of 111 miles an hour. Not that you're going to do that legally anywhere, I guess, unless you live in Germany. But the 0 to 62 dash is 6.4 seconds. So it's quick. It's not ballistically quick. It doesn't kind of go toe to toe with a lot of really high-end performance EVs. However, I've been driving it for the last few days and it's not slow. It really isn't. But sadly, no front storage, which is a shame because I think there's an opportunity there with an EV to have that. Now then, rear seat room. Well, actually, I spent quite a bit of time in the back of one of these when I went to Czechia, and there's plenty of space in here. It's really very nicely appointed. This seat's as far back as it needs to go for me, having very long legs, so I would guess the average driver probably has the seat forward a little bit, in which case you'd have a little bit more room. But the seats are very comfortable. It's had some really nice options, this. I've got window blinds. I've got a little tray down here with some cup holders and stuff. Now, the only challenge I've got with that is, although there are 3 seats here and seat belts for 3, it's really a kind of 2-seat with an emergency seat in the middle. You can pull down this and you've got a place to put your, some extra drink holders and that kind of thing. You've even got access into the boot if you really wanted it as a ski hatch. So yeah, plenty of space in the back. There we go. But in the front, it's very, very nicely appointed indeed. Now, this is nothing like Skodas of old. If you're sat there and you're a bit of a brand snob and you're thinking, oh, Skoda, and you've got this image of what Skodas used to be like, forget it, because it's just simply not like that anymore. This is just an equivalent to any of the high-end German brands. It's lovely in here, really lovely. These seats look amazing. They are quite firm, but they look really nice. And it's a really nice driving position. Now, let me just have a look. So the car's on 100% charge, 99%. I haven't moved it since I unplugged it. And it's showing 259 miles of range. Now, the WLTP number for this car is 323. So obviously we completely ignore that because it's fantasy. But I don't think 258 on a full charge is too bad for a kind of performance EV. And then the WLTP miles per kilowatt hour of this car states about 3.6 to 3.8, I think. And if I look at the long term, since I've had the car, I've done 282 miles and I've averaged 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which I actually think is pretty good, to be fair. So, range wise, that's a usable amount of range. In terms of drive modes, there's and the sort of interacting with the car, there's a big touch screen there. It's quite prominent out of the dash, but that means it's big and it's very responsive and all the icons are quite big, so that's nice. But there are some hard buttons down here. Certainly in terms of climate control, you can push that and go straight into your climate control menu. So they're almost like hotkeys, and you've got a mode button there to jump and go straight into your I think we have to turn the climate control off, straight into your different drive modes. So let's take it out for a drive. To be honest, I've only driven the car in sport because when I drove to the airport and back, the round trip journey was easily within the stated range of the car. I didn't have to drive in an economic way at all, and I wanted to kind of see what it was like to drive, and it was great fun. So let's take the car out for a drive and explore those different modes. But in terms of the spec, in terms of the feel of the car from the driver's seat, I couldn't want for any more. It's a really nice place to be, really very special. Now, out and about driving. First up, we've been joined by a special guest, Felix in the house. So the little fella sat on the rear seat is called Felix. And if you win a sprint stage on the Tour de France, you get one of those, and all the sprint stages are sponsored by Skoda. and I was very, very lucky to come home with a Felix from a prize draw, and actually that one is signed by Andy Schleck, so he's very, very special, so I thought he could come out for the ride. So first up, I'm just in normal mode, and I just wanted to talk about what this car's like to drive normally. And it's quite simply put, it's got a very solid feeling to it. It's a very well built car, it gives you lots of confidence, it's really smooth, it's got quite a light steering to it, and the throttle is really responsive. So if you know, even in normal mode, you've got that instant torque. It's quite a zippy little car. But this is, I guess, the kind of mode that most driving will be done in, I would assume. Now, I've got my stats up since we started. We've only been going 2 miles, so they're not going to be particularly relevant. But as I said, you know, I've seen most of the time I've been driving this car, it's been in excess of 3 miles per kilowatt hour. At the moment, I'm just in the normal drive mode on the gearbox. I have got the ability, if I just pull that back, the little lever back, I now go into B mode and I have much more regenerative braking. It's not a really aggressive one pedal driving mode like you get in some cars, but it is, it's going to recuperate as much energy as I can. And at the moment, now I'm on my way, I'm showing 251 miles at 98% battery. Now, if you go into the MMI, there's plenty of ways in which you can optimize the setup of this car. One of the ways you can do that in order to prolong battery life is you can set maximum charge levels for the battery. There's a school of thought that says you should never charge the battery to 100% because it has long-term detrimental effects to the battery. So you can set the car so it will only ever charge to, let's say, 80%. The downside of that, and you don't have to be a mathematician to work it out, is if you're only charging to 80% of the battery, you're not going to get 250 miles, you're going to get 80% of that. But in normal mode, it's a really nice place to be. Size-wise, it's quite a big car. It feels like quite a big car. You've got a reasonably elevated driving position. It's not a slam to the floor saloon. You are raised up a little bit, but I don't think it's as much as one of the kind of crossover type SUV vehicles. But it is a nice driving position, plenty of visibility, but it does feel like a big car.
There are 5 different versions of the Enyaq you can choose from. First up, the IV60 has a 58 kilowatt hour battery pack and a WLTP range of 246 miles. There are then 3 different versions of the Enyaq IV80. The IV80, the IV80 Sportline Plus, and the IV80X Sportline Plus. These all have a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack and a range from 317 miles for the Sportline Plus to the maximum of 339 miles for the IV80. And then finally, the car on test here, the IV vRS. That again has a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack and a WLTP range of 321 miles. There's a huge range of options for each model, but you get a lot of kit thrown in as standard. In terms of pricing, the Enyaq IV60 starts the range off at an on-the-road price of £38,970, and that goes all the way through to the range-topping IV vRS of £52,670. There's a very long list of standard kit on all VRS models, including the 20-inch wheels, an amazing stereo adaptive cruise control, the crystal face on the front of the car I've mentioned earlier, DAB radio. You've got a range of different driver assistance packages, full LED matrix headlights, heated front seats, keyless entry, ambient lighting, panoramic glass roof, rear view camera, sports seats, traffic sign recognition. The list goes on and on and on. The only options on the car that I'm testing today is the velvet red metallic paint at £390, a transport package, intelligent parking plus, a charging cable and a family package basic. That brings in the total value or cost of this car at £56,000.
Okay, let's go up into sport mode. Now I'm in D, Now I've mentioned the B mode with the gear selector, which gives you regen braking. If you go into D, there's no regen braking at all, but you have got 3 recuperation levels which you can adjust with the paddles. So if you're on a normal kind of straight road, you might not want so much regen, but when you get to some tight and twisties, you might want it to be a little bit more aggressive, in which case you can then just click down. I've now gone into recuperation level 3, so I've got much more regen. So let's just have a squirt up here. Out of the corners, you've got that instant torque of an electric car, the thing that's the most fun to drive about an electric car. And it really is quite a responsive motor. It's not a super performance vehicle. I know vRS is the performance version of Skoda, but even their petrol cars were never ridiculous. They were never, I don't know, like an Audi RS, but they were always sporty, maybe like an Audi S model. And this certainly has that sporty response. Steering's quite light in the hand, and it is a heavy car. It's an electric car. The weight's quite low, a nice low centre of gravity. But along some twisty roads, it's actually quite a nice car to chuck about. Now you've come out of the bend, you might then just select to back off that recuperation level. So now when I lift off, I don't have any retardation at all until I apply the brake. Once we get onto the recuperation level 3, if I just turn that up to recuperation level 3, so I'm driving along at 50, I lift off, I now start braking, I go down to 45, I go down to 40, so it's retarding the car quite a lot. Whereas if I'm in recuperation level 0, there's none. If I go back up to 50, lift off, it just stays coasting, and I'm coasting down a hill now anyway. So I think for a more internal combustion engine feel, you'd probably drive this in D with no regen braking at all. But you've got a really nice feel to the car. It's sprightly, it's quick, and I like it a lot. My overall impressions of the car, having, to be fair, not done a massive amount of driving, a few hundred miles, driving to the airport and back, and a few local runs, is it's just a really nice place to be. It's very comfortable, really nicely equipped. I can't really give you any feedback on the infotainment system, on the satellite navigation, the integration with the charge network, the whole living with proposition, because quite frankly I haven't had the car long enough, and that's not really why I got the car in the first place. I got the car to take me up to Heathrow and back, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to review it and give you my feedback. I think Skoda as a brand right now are making some really interesting cars, and they've got really interesting stuff on the way. But I've enjoyed my time with Skoda, and I've enjoyed my time with the Enyaq, and certainly my trip to the Tour de France. I actually found out something I didn't know, why Skoda have such strong link with cycling, and that is because before they made cars, Skoda made bikes. They started off making push bikes and then got into cars. So they were originally a bike brand. I didn't know that. I don't know how that one had passed me by all of these years. But let me know what you think of the Enyaq. I'd love to spend a bit more time in one of these. I have already talking to the Skoda press team. There will be a Yeti coming to the channel soon. My guilty pleasure. I absolutely love the Skoda Yeti, and I've never driven one. So while I was out in France, I was talking to Charlotte from Skoda and said, I really want a Yeti on the channel. And she went, we'll sort that out. So there is a Yeti coming to the channel very soon, hopefully. But for now, I'm going to enjoy my drive back, and I certainly enjoyed my time in the Enyaq. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. Maybe I should take a Skoda to the Alps with my bike and do some proper climbing. That'd be good. Good video idea. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one, guys. You take care. Drive safe.